Hey, everybody, it's Scott Steehn with winnersandwhiners.com coming to you with our look at the MLB season. Yes, we are confident there will be an MLB season. How many games? When will it start? We have no earthly idea. But we do have some ideas about who's going to come out on top when that season is over. And joining me, as always, is my effervescent co-host there from up in Long Island, New York. He's my brother from another mother, the same name as me. He is the one, the only. He is Scott Reichel. Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you may be, Scott. How are you today?
Doing pretty well. It's officially the afternoon, so that's a good start. Overall, yeah, I mean, it's Friday. I'm looking forward to the weekend, even though pretty much every day feels the same right about now. Either or, yeah, looking forward to talking more baseball with you.
Scott, do you want to tell the folks how we just spent our last 10 minutes before we came on the air, what we were talking about?
Yes, we were talking about betting strategies on the quarantine eating challenge with Joey Chestnut, Matt Stoney, all those people. It was actually funny. I was actually in a BetOnline poker tournament yesterday where Joey Chestnut and Matt Stoney were in it for charity, and they were actually bounty. So if you knocked them out, you made yourself a free $100.
Did you end up playing at the same table with them?
No, I did not. I joined in. Apparently, when you're looking for two bounties in a field of 900 people, the odds of you actually finding one of the bounties is pretty slim.
How much was the tournament?
It was $11 for a buy-in. So they had regular placings. They had $10K guaranteed. And then in addition to that, you had a couple of bounties for all of the competitive hot dog eaters and all these people. So
that is my poker site. I really have to check that. I a little heads up would have been nice too. Just saying, I'm old. I can't keep track of everything. So
I'll keep that in mind for future reference. If I see anything, I'll let you know. But overall, that's how I pretty much kept busy yesterday. I was in a satellite tournament or two on BetOnline that actually worked out pretty well. But other than that, yeah, mostly just online poker and writing articles about the quarantine challenge for winnersandwhiners.com.
There you go. And that is he does actually have a piece up there for the what do they call it? What's the organization?
It's the Major League Eating.
Major League Eaters, as I kept wanting to say, League of American Eaters. I knew that was wrong. Yes,
that sounds pretty good though. It's like the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, but it's the League of Extraordinary Eaters. That's basically what you're going for.
I've been auditioning for the MLE for about 40 years now. So yeah, that's a.
You're in the words of competitive play, you're a recreational eater.
I am a recreational eater.
Yeah.
Very good. I'm definitely a marathoner, not a sprinter. So yeah, that was. And did you do any good in the tournament? Did you place in the big tournament with the?
No, I did not. Unfortunately, when you join in relatively late, you end up having to deal with pretty big blinds. You get ace 10 with about 4 bigs. You got a jam, and the guy had ace jack, and it held. Happens, is what it is. Not much you can do.
All right. Well, let's move on. And you said you did have one big bet on the WNBA draft.
Well, I did, but that was mostly just because of some rollover stuff. But basically, the WNBA draft is tonight. So if you are going to look for a little bit of action tonight, and if you're wanting to get your fix in for waiting for commissioners to stand up at a podium to announce who's going to go, since the NFL draft is next Thursday, there is the WNBA draft, and BetOnline does have some props if you want to bet on who's going to go where. The pretty much lock to be the number 1 overall pick is Sabrina Ionescu, who from Oregon has the record for most triple-doubles in the history of college basketball. She won Player of the Year the last couple of years. She's pretty much a given, but they do have a ton of props available. So if you wanted to find something and you got tired of betting on video game football or Russian ping pong, then that is an option for you tonight. So you could look at the WNBA draft.
That sounds like one of those things where 2 months ago you would have exaggerated. It's like, oh, why don't we might as well bet on a Russian ping pong? Except that's actually a thing now. That's
yep.
Actually they actually have their own tab at most of the betting sites on Russian table tennis. So I don't know if we're at rock bottom yet, Scott, but I certainly hope so. That's all I'm saying. We need some positive action.
I think rock bottom is people betting on who's going to be the actor in the upcoming Tiger King movie when there's not even a Tiger King movie announced yet.
Oh, there will be.
I know there will be, but if you put money down, I don't know how long that's going to stay in your account. Is there an end date for that? Like if you bet on somebody to star in a Tiger King movie and the movie comes out 20 years from now, does the bet waive at some point? How does that work?
You would think it would have to time out. I would definitely.
That's what I'm curious about. These are the things I think of in the intro for a video on the AL Central.
Very
That's what I
good.
think of.
Did you? And I know you've been watching a lot of movies. You watch any movies last night?
What did I watch? I rewatched a couple of movies that were on TV. I rewatched 21 Jump Street the other day. Comedy. It's funny. I mean, I've seen it before. But overall, no. I actually recorded The Untouchables, so I'm actually planning on watching that today.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. I forgot to mention that when we were talking about the classic gangster type movies. Now, I got a link for current run movies. Somebody sent it to me, and it's actually ad free and none of the BS. Nice. And I've watched. I watched The Invisible Man, and last night. I watched Fantasy Island.
Nice.
So
how'd that go?
It was okay. It was about a 5.1 on Rotten Tomatoes, and that's about what I'd give it. It was
okay.
The Invisible Man was fairly entertaining. If you get a chance, you check that out. Fantasy Island, I'd say, you probably go ahead and bet on some Russian table tennis. So, let's start off. Let's do some baseball. What do you think, buddy?
Sounds good to me.
We're gonna get a little baseball started. We don't know where they're going to be playing. We don't know when they're going to be playing, but we know that at some point there will be baseball again. And when baseball starts up, I think the Twins are going to dominate the American League Central just like they did last year. There is a new sheriff in town, and they come from Minnesota. Sorry, Cleveland. That run is over. Skipper Rocco Baldelli takes his Twins squad that finished 101 and 61 last year into the season. They are looking for some serious regression from this team, Scott. I guess they don't think they can hit 300 home runs again, as the number of pre-virus, we want to stress that, was posted at Caesars at 90.5. There at DraftKings, it's 58%. This team is loaded. They hit over 300 home runs last year with, of course, Sano, Max Kepler. And, by the way, they brought in a young gentleman by the name of Josh Donaldson. Maybe you've heard of him. Signed a 4-year, $92 million deal to head up there to Target Field and bang some home runs. They also filled out their weak spot, their pitching staff. Kenta Maeda from the Dodgers. Of course, they did lose Kyle Gibson, Martin Perez, and Pineda is going to have a suspension to start the year. But, this is a heck of a team. Jake Odorizzi, Jose Barrios. Scott, anybody going to challenge the Twins this year?
If somebody's going to challenge the Twins, it's not going to be in the division. I'll tell you that much. It'll have to be in the playoffs. Because if you look at this division, we know how bad they were last year, 4 out of the 5 teams. The Indians were mediocre for most of the year, and they kind of fell apart down the stretch. The Indians overall, we'll get to them in a little bit, but I think we can all agree that the Twins, they did address some issues they had during the course of the offseason. Did they need Donaldson? No. But, of course, why would you not take him if you can get him? The contract might become a bit of an issue as he will be 38 by contract's end. But as of right now, I think you can agree that Donaldson should provide, at least at a minimum, a significant improvement in the fielding. I know that Miguel Sano is an okay third baseman. Donaldson's a very good historical fielding third baseman. I think he should help potentially save some runs in the field itself. They're going to move Sano to first base, potentially DH. They still got Nelson Cruz, who I'm not really sure how he's still productive at his age. But he was phenomenal last year. And other than that, though, I mean, if Byron Buxton can stay healthy, he's one of the best center fielders in the entire league. You could probably argue with him and Jackie Bradley Jr. just for fielding purposes, but Buxton's definitely up there. Overall, the rotation.
Kevin Kiermaier's on the phone for you, Scott.
Yeah, Kiermaier's also up there. You could also argue Kevin Pillar potentially, but either or. I think Buxton's probably a top 2, top 3 fielding center fielder in the entire league. He can save you runs. He's got a great arm. But if you want to look at the actual pitching, yes, they lost Gibson. Yes, they lost Perez. Were either of them really that good? No. They replaced them with Maeda, Homer Bailey potentially, and Rich Hill is also on the roster. And the bullpen is decent. Sergio Romo, decent setup guy. Taylor Rogers, pretty good closer. They also got veteran Tyler Clippard. Never really been a big fan of Clippard, but he is a veteran, so he might be able to find ways to piece, decent outings in the 7th inning role. Overall, though, there's really not much to say. This lineup is ridiculous, and it somehow got better now that it got Josh Donaldson. I think this team should win 100-plus games again, and Rocco Baldelli is also the defending manager of the year. in the AL, so that is something to keep in mind. I think that this team is poised to win 100-plus games again. I'll take the over.
Yeah, I like the over a lot. That's one of my favorite plays on the board this season. And they got a couple of rookie starters there that were rookies in 2019. They got Smeltzer and Dobnik. I think either one, if not both of those guys, could come by and certainly replace the middle to bottom of the rotation guys that Kyle Gibson and Martin Perez were. That's not gigantic holes to have to fill right there. Kyle Gibson certainly had his moments, but I think the Twins got tired of waiting on him to take that next step into, number 2 or number 1 status. So, yeah, there's just really nothing to, for starters, they're going to play 76 games against the American League Central.
That's a pretty good win percentage right there.
Yeah, it really is. It's huge right there. Now obviously the White Sox have taken a step up. We're going to talk about them in a minute, but the Indians have taken a step back, and the Kansas City Royals and the Detroit Tigers are they're epically bad.
You're selling on the Royals. We'll get to that later. You're selling on the Royals.
Yeah,
you're wearing Royals blue. I can't believe it.
Well, spoiler alert.
Yeah.
I think you and I both agree on that one. That number, and I don't really understand that. Scott, what's your theory why they have dropped that number 10.5 games from their finish last year?
Well, that's the interesting part, is that DraftKings has the number at 58%, and what was the number you had there? You said it was 90?
I got 90.5 from Caesars. That was and I have to check the date on that, Scott, because that could have been pre-Donaldson signing.
I'm not sure. For the sake of this, I'll stick to the 58, I guess.
Yeah.
Which sounds more realistic based on where they should be. I still think it's too low. I mean, the only thing I could think of is the fact that maybe they just don't trust the young guys to duplicate the success they had in year 2. Or maybe they just are skeptical of Rich Hill and Homer Bailey's ability to enter the rotation, maybe as a veteran, and to actually provide a spark in that field. But overall, I mean, this is clearly one of the best teams in the entire – they're probably the second best team in the American League. Besides just the division, I mean, we talked about them as potential sleepers to win the AL. What was it, plus 800 we gave out in the overview video? So there's nothing really I can doubt. The only way that they would fall under is either due to injury or just some of their pitchers get injured. Berrios gets injured, somebody like that. But if most of the people stay healthy, I don't see how this team doesn't win triple-digit games.
Yeah, I'm not so sure I share your enthusiasm for triple digits, but I think 95 to 98. I got to consider that. I got to consider that almost a lock at this point. So let's talk about some of the challengers here, quote unquote. Let's talk about the Indians. The Indians inexplicably somehow, and you talked about it. You think of the Indians last year, how they fell off, had a horrible year, blah, blah, blah. They still won 93 games. They still, Tito was able to get 93 wins out of this squad. I don't know how he did it. That's one of the better managing jobs in all of baseball, if you ask me. They've Francona's never had a losing season. Posted 7 winners in a row since he took over in 2013. I believe this may be the year that comes to a screeching halt. They have definitely they've cut some payroll. They got rid of a couple of certainly one ace and another number 2 starter there in Trevor Bauer and Corey Kluber. Mike Clevenger's got a torn meniscus. We'll see if he's ready to start the delayed season. They were talking about 8 weeks after the season started, so we'll see if he's ready to go. Of course, none of these guys are going to have spring training again. I don't know. Scott, tell me about the Indians. What do you think?
I'm not as pessimistic on the Indians as you sound, but overall their win percentage is currently 53.5. I think that sounds a bit right to me. I mean, you talked about Francona typically does a very good job in the regular season of trying to manufacture as many wins as possible with the talent or lack thereof around him. The thing about the Indians, I'm not really sold on the lineup. I don't think it's very good. I know that you talked about Kluber not being in the rotation because they traded him. He also barely pitched last year as he had a broken arm for pretty much the entire season. They shipped him off for pennies on the dollar to Texas. I thought they got ripped off pretty badly on that trade, which isn't exactly a good sign. But overall, Jose Ramirez was a disaster for a couple of months. He picked it up a little bit in the second half. Lindor is always very good, but you got to wonder if the Indians might ship him off in either the offseason, upcoming, or even the middle of the season if they get an offer they can't refuse. Other than that, they got Franmil Reyes, who can hit home runs, doesn't really get on base that much. Mercado's okay. Santana's okay. I mean, Carlos Santana's pretty good. But the lineup's mediocre, I'd say. The rotation, even without Kluber, though, assuming that everybody's healthy, is still very good. Clevenger's very solid. Bieber's very good. He kind of came out of nowhere last year. Carrasco overcame cancer. He has been a solid starter in the past. Was a little bit inconsistent last year, but he also missed some time due to cancer, so he wasn't fully sharp. I expect him to pitch a lot better this season. Plotko's a decent number 4. And, I mean, of course, if they had Kluber, you're talking about a potential top 3 rotation in the entire league. He's not there anymore. I still like the rotation. I'm not really sold on the bullpen. Brad Hand's a decent closer. But am I sold on Whitgren, Perez, Simber, Wood, and Hoyt? No. I think this team should win around 53.5 games. I'm not really going to give a thought on it because I think this number is pretty accurate.
53.5%.
Yeah, I think they'll finish somewhere in that range. I don't think they're going to get to 90. I think they'll finish somewhere in the 80s. And I think that –
and I didn't preview that, but yeah, I had the number at 86.
I think that sounds about right to me. So for me, I'm not going to touch it, but I would be more likely to lean to the over than the under, just solely based on the rotation in that division. So that's my thought.
And again, like the Twins, they get to play. At least if the White Sox are better, we're going to talk about them next, but they at least get to play 38 games against the Royals and the Tigers.
Yes, but they also, unlike the Twins, they have to play 19 games against the Twins.
Absolutely.
So that is something to keep in mind.
Absolutely. I like him at shortstop. I like him at first base. I think the outfield's a disaster.
Are you a fan of the rotation as I am, or you're a little bit?
I'm not. I'm not as big a fan of the rotation. I was just going to say that I'm not quite as big a fan of the rotation as you are. I just don't have the faith. I think between Clevenger, Bieber, and Carrasco, I think one of those guys certainly is primed to have a bad year.
I think if you were going to play the guessing game, I think it would most likely be Carrasco. Because he really hasn't had the biggest sample size since coming back. Now, of course, other pitchers have come back from cancer, most notably John Lester, and he ended up having a very nice career for himself. But as a whole, you have to wonder, is he going to be the same guy? And in the small sample size you saw after he came back, he kind of struggled a little bit.
He did. He absolutely did. And you certainly wondered if that was about conditioning. Cancer treatment, that's no walk in the park in and of itself. So yeah, he certainly is primed to have a better season than he did last year after he returned. Very inspirational story. We wish him the best. I'm not ever hoping for anyone to fail. I hope that he does have a good season and does have a nice career like John Lester. Apparently, the only thing they removed the cancer and the ability to throw to first base for John Lester. So that was kind of a weird situation for him. But yeah, I'm not as high on this rotation as you are, but Tito's always going to push the right buttons with the bullpen. It'll be interesting to watch him have to manage under the new rules where relief pitchers have to face at least 3 batters.
Well, one thing to just mention though, even if you're not as high in the rotation as I am, would you agree that it's probably a top 2 rotation in the division?
Well,
I know that's not saying much. I think the rotation's probably better than the Twins.
You think their rotation is better than the Twins?
Yes. You might disagree with me there because of some of the young guys, but for me, I actually think Plotko is a very solid number 4. That's just me. I think that they're actually deeper than other rotations in the division.
Do you think they'll in any way challenge the Twins?
No, but I'm saying I think that they'll find ways to win games because of the fact that they should be leading after 5-6 innings a decent amount in division games. Okay. That's kind of my thought. Now, is the bullpen going to hold up? I don't know. But I think the rotation's good enough to give them a lead after 5.
Yeah, I feel like this is about a 500 team, and I'll give them an extra 4 or 5 wins because of Francona. I think it's I wouldn't touch this bet. If I was going to play it, if you put a gun to my head, I'd probably play that 96. I think they're more of an 83, 84, but
yeah, I'm passing personally, but that's just
absolutely.
Do you think they might be worth some bets on the first 5 though? I mean, you said you don't like the rotation, so I can't really.
Yeah, no.
I think in division games you could find some value in the first 5.
Perhaps.
If you see the Royals going up against them and you have to lay on the money line minus 200 or above, they should probably be leading after 5 with that rotation. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, the Royals have certainly.
Just a thought there.
All right, so let's talk about the up and coming kids on the block. This is a team, and I didn't go back and check this, but I have a hunch after almost doing the entire major leagues here that this is the biggest jump of anticipated improvement of anywhere on the board. White Sox went 72 at 89 last year. The number on them is 84 and a half, a 12 and a half game difference between their results last year and the anticipated results of this year. 52% is their percentage on DraftKings. They last made the postseason, Scott, in 2008. They last had a winning season in 2012. What's the deal? Why is everybody so high on the White Sox?
Well, I think it's kind of similar to the reason why people were high on the Reds, but to a lesser degree. They made a lot of acquisitions during the offseason. They also have some new talent coming in, or I wouldn't say new, but relatively new from the farm system, who has the ability to potentially, lead this team in the right direction. You said that the White Sox have the biggest jump. I'd assume the Reds probably have the second biggest jump because they were kind of the hot ticket as well from most bettors during the course of the offseason. But for the White Sox, if you look at the rotation, Giolito emerged as a potential ace last season. He's very good. Dallas Keuchel's still there. He has been a veteran who has been successful in the past. They got Reynaldo Lopez, who had a lot of losses last year, but according to most people, he does have a lot of dynamic stuff, and the matter is just control and whether or not the pitching staff can do a good job at turning him into a better control guy. But that remains to be seen. But if you look at the rotation, really not that bad. I mean, the bullpen, they got a Cechek, who's a pretty good bullpen guy. Bummer's okay. They got Herrera, who's okay, I guess. And I'm not a fan of their closer, and Alex Colome, however you want to pronounce it. Not really a big fan of him. But the lineup, they did get Grandal, who's going to help a lot at the catcher spot. They still have Abreu, who's really good. They still got Moncada. They still got Tim Anderson. Eloy Jimenez is one of the best prospects in all of baseball. I think he underachieved a little bit last year, but as a whole, he does have a lot of upside, so he should be pretty good. They're also they brought in Edwin Encarnacion to the DH spot to bring in some power. They also have some younger guys in Luis Robert, and they also got Nick Madrigal. They have a lot of young guys who could potentially become superstars in the league, so I feel like people are trying to jump in and hope that one of those two younger guys, particularly Robert, could be that guy to potentially push this team over the top. I'm a little bit more skeptical and trusting younger guys, so I have no interest in playing. But I think by far they are at least the third best team in the division.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. I don't even think it's questionable. And they finally got it turned around. A lot of times the teams turn around will follow the turnaround in the front office, and they finally, after making some terrible trades, they flipped. They got rid of Marcus Semien for Jeff Samardzija. They turned around. They really started when they had the fire sale with Chris Sale. They gave Chris Sale to the Red Sox they got Juan Moncada, and they got Michael Kopech, a guy that we didn't really talk about, a guy that hit 105 on the radar gun in the minor league.
Well, it is worth mentioning that they did send Kopech down to the minors, but he will most likely be back up at some point during the course of the regular season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, with a lot of those guys, they're throwers. They got to teach them how to pitch. So, but it's just like in football, you can't coach speed. You can't coach 100 plus fastball either. That is always going to get scouts' attention, and it's always going to make the people salivate. Tim Anderson was a guy that absolutely went under the radar last year.
He was great.
If you were to ask the average baseball fan who led the American League in batting, I don't think many people would guess Tim Anderson. But Tim Anderson did hit 335 last season, and he is he's fired up, man. As somebody that saw him play a lot,
yeah, you would know a lot about that. I feel like that's how most people know Tim Anderson, with the whole bat throwing incident against the Royals.
Yeah, he's spunky. He really is, man. He doesn't back down from anybody. He got a little pop. He had 18 home runs, 17 stolen bases, and now here's the thing about Anderson and also Moncada, and this is interesting. They finished. Anderson was second, and Moncada was sixth in the major league in BABIP last year. So there's a little bit of thought that they could be due for some regression, but then again, they are kind of slashing guys. They are guys that are going to have higher BABIPs. So it kind of remains to be seen whether the incredibly high averages were an aberration caused by BABIP or if that's just kind of the hitter they are. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, well, one thing to touch upon that, though, it might help them out because they might have more support in the lineup. I talked about how Robert is supposed to be this up-and-comer guy who's supposed to help the lineup. If you look at Bet Online, he's actually favored to win the Rookie of the Year in the American League. So he, according to most projections, even in betting markets, he's supposed to be this rookie phenom. I don't know if he's Tatis level, but he's supposed to be this type of guy. And if you can throw him with Moncado and even Tim Anderson, that's a very underrated three there.
Yeah.
If you want to get in the order. We talked about with Soto with the Nationals a couple of days ago, how support is very important for these key players. You can just pitch around them without the case. And if Robert is going to be in line to potentially win the AL Rookie of the Year, this team might score a lot more runs than people think they will.
That's certainly a possibility. All right, so you said you don't really like that 84.5. You don't have a feeling there on that one way or the other.
I find it a little bit difficult to put so much faith into the young guys. I've seen Jimenez play. He has talent. I think he's a little bit overrated at this point. I haven't really seen the phenom aspect of him. I think he's pretty good, though. Moncado has had some injury issues in the past. Breu's had some injury issues in the past, but he's still very good. And, I mean, I haven't seen Robert play. He hasn't been in the majors yet, so I'm not just going to pencil him in as this immediate 280 with 20 home runs and 80-something RBIs. I just can't do it. And even though I like the rotation from the top perspective with Giolito and Keuchel, I think the other three are complete wild cards, and I think the bullpen's mediocre at best. So I think this team should be around 500. I think this number is pretty close to where they'll end up.
Yeah, I would have to lean. I would have to lean under. I'm just call me skeptical of Luis Giolito. He literally went from the worst pitcher in baseball statistically to one of the best pitchers in baseball last season. It was a time, in fact, we made fun of it. We talked about it on the videos earlier in the season last year. The only team that he dominated was the Royals in his career until last season. I think he's due for regression. I'm not sure Dallas Keuchel showed me enough last year to get excited about him being a number two. Anytime a team is slated for a 12.5 game improvement, basically on the come with a lot of unproven players and a lot of players looking for a repeat of great seasons. I would have to go under in this one.
Do you think this will be an over team to bet though, game to game, or no?
As far as the total,
just for game totals.
Yeah,
I think the lineup's going to be good. It's just a matter of I don't really trust anybody in the rotation. I'm actually high on Giolito. I think I'll tell you what, if this team is going to go over their win total, you'd be better off just betting the Giolito personal win total.
Yeah, that's true.
I think that would just be a better use of their money because Giolito is by far the best pitcher on the roster.
Yeah, he has to lead the way. If he reverts to old Giolito or even an average pitcher, this win total is absolutely sunk.
Yeah, then you lose both. But there is a chance that Giolito could go 15-15, and you'll win the personal, and then the White Sox will still finish 10 games under.
Yeah, I do like them from an over perspective. They've got the two things you look for. Average,
no pitching, and they can hit. I mean,
average pitching, and they hit the ball. So yeah, that would be especially early in the season. I think everybody's going to be high on the White Sox. I think there's definitely going to be some value on the over. Again, depending on where they're playing. If you're playing all your games in Arizona where the line starts at 10 and just goes up from there, then we'll have to see how that all works out. But now here's my big question to you: did they finish in front of Cleveland?
No. I told you that I thought Cleveland would finish somewhere around 86 wins. You were a little bit more skeptical on that. Right. I said not to bet the total, and I honestly wouldn't bet the White Sox total either. But either or, I do think the Indians overall have more proven guys. I think I wouldn't be surprised if the White Sox finish better if some of these younger guys actually live up to the billing. I'm just skeptical of these guys who dominate AAA, who suddenly face MLB pitching, and I'm expecting them to just immediately turn the switch.
Right.
I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, totally agree. All right, so now let's talk about a fine young team with a bunch of up-and-comers that is poised to make a run and perhaps challenge for the – I'm sorry. We're going to talk about the Royals.
2027 World Series champions.
They do have some guys coming. They've got some pitchers that are coming that are in Double A. That made the jump from Single A to Double A. What is this? 2020, 20. I know their plan was to be competitive in 2021. I don't think they're going to make it. I think more like
2024, 2025.
Yeah, we'll have to see because it's you have to turn over the hitters by then. The Royals made a lot of changes. Number one, they sold the team as David Glass made out like an absolute bandit. Bought the team for $90 million, sold it for over $900 million.
Not a bad day. Not a bad day.
Tell
you what, that's a lot of units. That's how I'll describe that. That's a decent amount of units right there.
That's a good ROI, my friend.
Yeah, it's good ROI. Very good ROI. Yeah,
that's even better than that Walmart money. So
I think anything over $300 million is greedy, but that's just my personal opinion.
How much do you need? How many yachts can you have, Scott?
Mm-hmm.
They brought in they got Ned Yost. He rode off into the sunset down there to his farm in Georgia. He did it, as Frank Sinatra sang, he did it his way.
Future Hall of Famer.
Yeah, okay.
I think he is. I mean, I'll tell you what, even if you didn't like him personally, just because you watched a decent amount of Royals games, I think you can agree based on success and then the fact that he made it to back-to-back World Series and won one with a small market team, he'll probably get in at some point.
Yeah, I agree. I think Ned's going to probably be. It may be a veteran.
I don't think you'd vote for him though. You didn't sound too thrilled about him a second.
He was he just was so old school. Just refused to embrace a lot of analytics. He was fine. He's Ned. And you always have to give him credit for bringing a world championship to Kansas City that a lot of people did not think was a possibility. Taking him to back-to-back World Series. It's an incredible feat, and you do have to give him some credit. And there's a lot of intangibles when it comes to managing a baseball game or managing a baseball team. And I think Ned had those. He was very well loved by the players, good clubhouse guy. So I may not have liked all the moves that he made, but I think at the end of the day, you have to tip your cap and you have to give credit to.
But do you prefer Ned or the current manager of the Royals? That's the question I got to ask you. I'll let you rant a little bit about this.
It's like asking me if I'd rather eat beets or Brussels sprouts. Mike Matheny supposedly has undergone a bit of a renaissance since being hired as the manager from the St. Louis Cardinals. He has taken some classes. He's actually working on his master's degree.
He's taking some classes. Nice.
He's working on his master's degree. On a what was that? Organizational leadership. He took an analytics course. He's hired a media consultant to help him eliminate his blind spots and grow his managerial style. So I don't know, man.
What can possibly go wrong? What can possibly go wrong?
It sounds like putting frosting on a pile of poop to me, but we'll see what happens. We'll see. I know that they ran him out of St. Louis. They hated him in St. Louis. Of course, the St. Louis Cardinals fans, they're rarely happy about anything going on unless they're winning world championships. He had winning seasons there, so we'll see how he does with a young club. It's going to be interesting. The Royals, they've got some talent, Scott. You and I were talking a little bit about this off air. They've got Alberto Mondesi. They got Whit Merrifield. They get Salvador Perez back this year. After missing last year with knee surgery. They've got Jorge Soler, who set the franchise record for home runs last year, which was, again, that was a fine trade there. They traded Wade Davis to the Chicago Cubs for Jorge Soler, one of the rare instances where the Royals actually sold high on a player when they should have as a turned Davis after he had his incredible season there in 2015. So they do have some talent, but what they don't have pitching, my friend. They had the fourth worst ERA in baseball. When I read that stunned me that they weren't worse than that. 5.20 ERA. They had Homer Bailey last season. They shipped him mid-season. It's just it's a train wreck there. They brought in Mike Montgomery again after he's been ruined by the Cubs and the Rangers. I just don't see it. I just don't see it at all. Danny Duffy. They've got Jake Junis. they've got some guys that are at best middle of the pack guys, and they're innings eaters, and they are absolutely weak on the back end. They do bring back Brad Keller, and this is tell you all you need to know about the Royal staff. Brad Keller is probably going to be the number one starter. In last year, he was a Rule 5 guy. So that pretty much, and obviously, anytime you can get anybody in the major leagues is going to turn into a starter in a Rule 5, that's a great deal. But should he be your ace the very next season? Probably not. So, yeah, they've got Brad Keller, Danny Duffy, Jacob Junis, Montgomery, and Glenn Sparkman, who is all kinds of dreadful. The only good thing I'll say about this Royals team is they're not the Tigers. That's really all I can say about that. They should be. And I talk about a team that could be a good over team. You've got another one here a team that can actually hit a little bit. It's got a little bit of pop, and the pitching is going to absolutely be dreadful.
Yeah. I mean, well, for starters, I'm going to start out with the manager conversation. Royals fans, I think, can hold their head a little bit high because at least you didn't get Gabe Kapler. That's how I would put that. It could have been worse.
Right.
I mean, when you're talking about the renaissance of the transformation, that kind of just sounds exactly like cut and paste from Mike McCarthy before he signed the Cowboys job. That's kind of what it sounds like to me. He went through this special, he was taking a class, but Mike McCarthy organized a special coaching coalition basically to game plan. It's basically what it sounds like to me. They tried to reinvent their image. I'm not really sure how that's going to work out in either situation. For the Royals, I actually think their lineup's not that bad. I mean, Salvador Perez, I think, is one of the most underrated catchers in the league. I know he's coming off an injury. I've always loved Salvador Perez. I think he's a very good player. And I think that he doesn't get enough respect for playing in Kansas City and just being as good as he actually is. He's very good. I mean, there's no way around that. You look at the rest of the lineup, Mondesi's very good. I think he could be a potential sleeper to lead the league in stolen bases. I think if you wanted to look for a potential prop there,
Absolutely.
I think that's an option. Merrifield, of course, is very good. They ended up picking up Maikel Franco. Pass. I'm not a Franco guy. I never really have been. No offense. I mean, it couldn't really get much worse for the Royals, so I guess, they tried to find somebody with upside, but Franco has never really been able to piece it together. Other than that, I do think Hunter Dozier is a bit underrated. I think he has some talent. Soler kind of concerns me a bit because I always thought he was an underachiever with Chicago, and now he had one good year or one unbelievable year, and people think he's suddenly going to be able to duplicate that. I feel like that last year might have been a bit of an outlier. I think he might come a little bit back down to earth at somewhere in the realm of 30, maybe low 40s in home runs. I don't think he's going to be pushing 50. I think that was a little bit much last season, so I expect a little bit of regression from him. But as a whole, I think Ian Kennedy's actually a mediocre closer. I actually don't think he's that terrible. He was pretty good after he completely failed in the rotation. And as a desperation move, they moved him to the bullpen. I think you can agree he actually was serviceable as a closer last year. I don't think he was that bad.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, they pretty much have an albatross of a contract with him. They signed him 5 years, $100 million probably in that neighborhood if I remember right. And yeah, he's done a fine job as a closer. We've talked a little bit about this. The last thing that a team like the Royals needs is a great closer. But yeah, he's certainly reinvented himself. He's always been able to throw the fastball. He just needs to work it up in the zone a little bit more. I think Soler, I think you're right. He's probably going to be a high 30s, 40 home run kind of guy. But you have to remember how incredible that is for the Royals, because until Mike Moustakas hit 38 home runs in 2018, the Royals' record for home runs was 36 by Steve Bye-Bye Balboni.
I was going to guess Beltran. That was going to be my guess.
No, not a bad guess. But, yeah, so for a Royals player, no Royals player before Soler had ever hit 40 home runs. How sad is that?
It's not great. I'll tell you that much. But actually, in hindsight, I would have either guessed Beltran or even Mike Sweeney. I think Mike Sweeney would have been a sleeper guess. But
Sweeney was just hurt too much.
Yeah, that is true. But he had the power. But anyway, overall, I'm actually going to have a slight lean to the over here. I think that, as you said, at least they're not the Tigers. They do play the Tigers 19 times. I think they should win at least, I'd say, 11 or 12 of those games minimum. I think they should. And the Royals, even if their pitching isn't great, if their offense is able to score 5 or 6 runs on a given game, I actually kind of trust Ian Kennedy to shut it down in the ninth, as weird as that might have sounded about 2 years ago.
Right.
I do think, from comparing him to most closers in the league, I actually think he's average to slightly above average.
Yeah, he's over the hump. He might be the 13th, 12th.
Yeah.
13th,
Now, I think the biggest disaster or the biggest wild card is going to be Trevor Rosenthal, who I think is pretty much done, and yet they brought him in, and he was a complete disaster at the end of his tenure with the Cardinals.
Yeah.
And, of course, he has upside, but he was awful.
Yeah, he was.
There was really no way to put it. He was terrible.
Very bad. Very, very, very bad.
Wasn't he with the Nationals and he had an ERA of infinity for about 3 appearances? Wasn't that a thing?
I think that's where he never got an out. I think that's
yes. I think he had an ERA of infinity for 3 outings, and his ERA closed at roughly 48.
It's one of those guys you look at and you go, I could do that good.
It's also one of those careers where you look at and you go, what the hell happened? Because you looked at him and he was having 40-something saves a year with the Cardinals.
Yeah.
And then in 1 year, he just couldn't find control of any pitch. He just completely imploded. Now, maybe the Royals can piece something with him to turn him into a deep reliever, maybe. I'm more skeptical of that. I think if the Royals are going to blow leads, it most likely will come from Rosenthal. But if you are in the 9th inning and you have a 1-run lead, there's a lot worse pitchers to go to than Ian Kennedy.
Yeah, that's true. All they have to do is get there.
Correct. So I'm actually going to lean to the over. I think they'll win around 42%. Are they going to be good? No. I just think 40 is a little bit too low when you're not even the worst team in your division.
Yeah, and I don't think we touched on the numbers. They were 59 and 103 last year. 64.5 is their number for this year. 40% is what they are at DraftKings. Is that you have them at 40% also?
Yeah. I'm going to slightly lean to the over. I think that they are going to be a little bit better than people think.
So you're thinking that they don't lose 100 games, basically. That's the goal for the Royals. And that is actually a realistic goal for Kansas City this year, is not to lose 100 games for the 3rd straight season.
I know that you were more skeptical of that, but for me, I don't know. I actually – part of me likes the lineup. I think the lineup's actually decent enough to win some games.
Well, they got some pop. So, yeah. Okay. I'm not sure I'm ready to say that they're going to go over 64.5. I think they may not lose 100, and I know that's
going to be close. I think they'll win 66.
Okay. All right, good enough. Because they do get to play the next team we're going to talk about 19 times, like you mentioned. It is the Detroit Tigers. You know, between Tiger King and the Detroit Tigers, it is not a good year for Tigers at all.
Not good. Yeah.
2020, no bueno, my friend. 2019 wasn't much either. The Tigers, they won all of 47 games last year, Scott. They went 47 and 114.
Not bad. Not bad.
If you run those numbers, it means there was one game where they didn't even make it up. They're like, we don't even care. Mm-hmm. We've seen enough out of you guys. 161, that'll be enough. Thank you very much. So this year they are slated for 8.5 games of improvement, Scott. 55.5 is the number, 35.5 is the percentage. And the Tigers, if anything, they were even worse than you think, because they started the season 7-3, and at the end of May they were 11 games under 500. So this team went 25-81 after May. That is a winning percentage of .236.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that record one more time for the listeners in the back?
25-81. In other words, they did not win 1 out of 4 games that they played. They won less than 1 out of 4 games the rest of the way from June through the end of the season. It's dreadful. And if you want to add insult to injury, here's a little fun fact for you. 5 members of the Tigers' 2014 starting rotation now have World Series rings. None of them, of course, with the Tigers. Scott, can you name them?
Well, you got of course, Scherzer. Scherzer is going to be there.
Okay.
David Price is going to be there.
Okay.
Was Verlander still there? I think Verlander was still there.
Yep.
The
other 2 are tough.
Anibal Sanchez.
There you go. That's probably the toughest one.
That's the toughest one?
Yeah.
Okay. I did not see that coming. Okay.
I'll give you a hint. He was a Cy Young winner.
Cy Young winner. I did not see that. If you had not told me that, then that might have. Oh boy. Cy Young winner. I'm gonna definitely slap myself in the head when I can't guess who this is. But
I'll take Rick Porcello for the.
of course. How could I forget about AL Cy Young Award winner Rick Porcello? Yeah, that's right.
Right. So yeah,
I got 4 out of 5. An 80 is a passing grade in school, so I'll take that.
Bees get degrees.
Not bad. Not bad.
There's anything to like about these Tigers? Yeah, they've got Fulmer. They've got Miguel Cabrera. By the way, they only owe Miguel Cabrera another $124 million over the next 4 seasons, so that should go well.
Well, the one thing that you can like about the Tigers is cheap tickets. That is one thing you can like about them, because I don't think anybody goes to their games. No joke, though. Their attendance is pretty bad, and it should be. If I lived in Detroit, why would I go see them play more than once a year? Even once a year. There's no point.
I did take in a game at Old Tiger Stadium, and that was kind of fun before they tore it down. I have not been to Comerica. I doubt if I'll be making any trips up there anytime soon. They do have they've got Philip Fulmer. It was Rookie of the Year in the 2016. He
had a serious injury, but he's
coming off a TJ. He missed most of 2018, all of 2019. He was going to miss the beginning of this season, but now with the delay, it looks like he could be ready.
I'll tell you what, though, if you actually look at the rotation, it's probably better than the Royals. No offense.
No, I like
Matt Boyd's not bad for me.
We rode him hard last year, especially early in the season.
For value, I mean, he was an underdog at plus 200 pretty much every start he made, and he was by far the best pitcher on the staff.
Yes, absolutely. And he's got that wipeout slider. He's not afraid to throw the high heat. I like him quite a bit. There's just not much else to like about this lineup. Scott,
the best hitter last year was Castellanos, and they shipped him halfway through. So
they cleaned house, man.
Yeah. Well, honestly, separate note, if you live in Detroit, I'm sorry. You got basically nothing to work with. The Red Wings are the worst team in hockey right now.
Right.
The Lions are always a joke. The Pistons have a bunch of albatross contracts, and you got the Tigers. Ouch.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that much. That is not a fun time. I am sorry for you if you live in Detroit. There are brighter days ahead, probably 5 years from now.
And by the way, Ohio State is completely Michigan's daddy. So
that is true. They also haven't won a championship since Elliott had the run against Bama. But, in the semis, and they beat Oregon. But either or, if your peak is celebrating a college championship, then I think your pro teams probably need to head in a new direction. That's just my 2 cents on that thought.
Yeah. And University of Michigan is not in Detroit, by the way. That's they don't claim them. Just not a lot to get. I like Detroit. Detroit's actually a fun town. Downtown Greektown, what they've done and everything. But I mean, nobody lives in Detroit. If you don't live like in the downtown area, the revitalized area, you're living somewhere else. You're living in the suburbs. Nobody lives in Detroit. I
can't say that I've been to Detroit. I visited Ann Arbor when I was visiting colleges, but I can't say that I ever actually stepped foot in Detroit, I believe. So I have no comment about it. But
I was gonna say you're too young to remember New York in the 70s, but it's a lot like the Bronx in the 70s.
That's not a good thing. That does not sound like a good thing. I'll tell you that much.
Not a good thing at all. So I think we agree this team's going to finish last. Scott, do they challenge for even 4th place?
You're not a CJ Crone guy at first base. You're not a Jacoby Jones guy at center field. You're not a fan of any of no. You're not a fan of Jaimer Catalahario at shortstop. I mean, at third base. I mean, come on. I don't know.
I think this is the point of the show where you just start making names up to see if I'm paying attention.
Oh, that's a real name. That's a real name. He's actually playing third base. But no, overall for the Tigers, everyone knows they're going to be bad. They pretty much invested everything they had into that World Series window that they had, I'd say, about 7 or 8 years ago. You mentioned the rotation of 2015.
Right.
And then they got swept by the Giants, and everything pretty much didn't work out in the end, and they traded everybody. I think the biggest issue they made was the Jordan Zimmerman contract, but that's a separate story.
Well, and they gave those 2 massive contracts to Cabrera and to Verlander, and they were able to get out from underneath the Verlander contract when it looked like that would be another albatross. When he was absolutely fading, he was terrible for about a year and a half, and Cabrera has really just fallen off. He's no longer going to play first base. He's going to DH this year. They've getting trying to lose weight. I don't know.
Cabrera's power has completely disappeared.
Gone.
Average-wise, though, he's actually been okay. See, when I think of falling off with albatrosses, the number one contract in my mind, I got two in mind. I got Chris Davis, which probably shouldn't have been given in the first place. That's one of the worst contracts of all time. And then number two has to be Pujols. I mean, that Pujols contract is terrible. But Cabrera actually hit 282 last year. It's not like he's completely been terrible. He just can't run the bases at all, and he can't field.
No, but they're paying him $22 million a year.
Oh, of course, but I'm saying that the Pujols contract's definitely worse.
When is Pujols up though?
I don't even want to know.
See, I think he's getting close to the end. Isn't
Cabrera getting close to the end also, or no?
4 more years.
I didn't even realize he had 4 more years. Never mind. I take back everything I just said. Never mind.
They owe him $31 million a year for 4 more years.
I think that means that Detroit's championship window or 500 window is pretty much non-existent for the next 4 years. I think
it is slammed shut, and everybody from Detroit had their fingers in the windowsill when that window came crashing down. So now they all have broken fingers. It's terrible.
For me,
absolutely dreadful.
To touch upon Detroit, I didn't realize it had 4 more years. I thought it was 2 years or so. So that is pretty bad. But for the Tigers to go back to this year, I have to take the under. I mean, if you look at the actual team, is there any chance they're buying anything at the deadline? No. It's probably a massive fire sale. Would you be surprised if they traded Matt Boyd during the trade deadline to a contender? Like if the Yankees came calling and said, we need a starting pitcher, for example, all hypothetical. The Yankees called for Matt Boyd and offered 2 prospects. They're going to say no?
Yeah, that's the thing. You've got to think. For not to trade Matt Boyd, you've got to think that the Tigers have a shot at contending within the next 2 or 3 years.
They don't.
And they don't.
Even Fulmer. Fulmer was linked to some trades before the injury.
Right.
I think one team could go after him. I mean, if you look at a team, maybe in Atlanta, maybe the Dodgers want to boost their starting pitching, they send over 1 prospect and some cash. I don't know how Detroit says no to that.
You know, the Tigers did have one highlight of the season. And I actually took this game where they were is
that the grand slam in extra innings?
No, where they were minus 500 against the Astros and Verlander, and they won 1-0. It was the largest underdog from a betting standpoint that's ever won a Major League Baseball game. They were minus 5.
Did Boyd pitch that game?
What's that?
Did Boyd pitch that game?
No. The other cat did that was so
Turnbull?
Miss.
Turnbull?
Not Turnbull.
The whole rotation was hit or miss. I'm not really
I know. Mostly hit. It was I think it was Turnbull. Actually, now that you say it,
I actually do remember that game. Yeah,
it was in Houston, and they won 1-0 over Verlander. Verlander gave up 1 run in the first inning, and that was it for the game. And Detroit shut him down the rest of the way.
I think the least surprising part of that is the fact the Tigers only scored 1 run.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about how I thought the Giants could be one of the worst teams in the league. I think that the Tigers or the Giants will be the worst team in the league. I think that both teams are going to be competing for around 45 wins. I think the Giants will probably finish around 50-something, so I think they'll finish in either second or third to worst. This Tigers team, I mean, I'll tell you what, though. If it's an all-time bad beat if you had the Tigers under last year, because I'm pretty sure it got voided since they only played 161. I think it got voided.
Did it really? They have to go 162 for those?
I think you do. I think you need to play a full game for schedule. I mean, because it makes sense though. Because of course, if you have the over and then they don't play one of the games, you got host.
Right.
I think you kind of have to. I think all action got canceled on that, even though you lost the over on that. Roughly, 3 months left in the season.
Right.
I think it canceled. I actually don't think any action counted on that bet.
I have to read the fine print on that. That I'd be interested to know whether that would be true, because that would be a hose if you had the under of Detroit and weren't able to cash it because they didn't play 1 game. You know, I'm with you, Scott. I don't see 8.5 games of improvement in this squad. I just don't. I don't see any way they go from 47 to 55.5. That's
are they even going to get to 45? I don't know.
No.
I have no idea.
They could literally be worse than they were last year. So, all right. So let's run them down here real quick from top to bottom, see what we think. Scott, at the top, we've got the Twins, and you think they're going to go triple digits again. I was not quite as bullish on the Twins to win 100, but I definitely like the over 90.5. You and I both agree the Twins finish first and go over the total. We're going to take 58%, which I think is going to come out to, 92, 93?
Yeah, I mean, I still like the over, so that doesn't really change.
Me too. I'm with you there. Now, things got a little bit interesting when we talked about the Indians. The Indians are slated at 86. You still think they finish second? You think the White Sox are not quite there yet?
I think the White Sox are probably a year or two away. I think it's going to help with a shortened spring training to throw in a bunch of young guys and say, win me some games against major league pitching you haven't seen before.
I like the under 86. You were kind of non-committal on this. Gun to your head. What do you play 86 with the Indians, over or under?
I think 86 is pretty right, but I would slightly into the over. I think if they won 93 last year, I think they'll probably end up around 89.
Okay. And then you and I agree that the White Sox maybe not quite there yet. They were slated for a 12.5 game improvement, going to 84.5. No, I don't think so. I think they go under there. I think there's a possibility they finish in front of Cleveland, however, but I don't think they go over 84.5. And Scott, where were you on the White Sox? You said they definitely finished third. And where were you?
I lean to the under there. I think they'll be around. I think they'll be around 500. I think if they were playing 162, they'd probably finish somewhere in the realm of like 78 and 84.
Yeah,
somewhere like that. That'd be my thought.
That sounds about right. The Royals, we have them both slated in fourth place, 64.5 with new manager Mike Matheny taking over. You like the over there? You know what? I'm going to have to fade the boys in blue. I think again, it's kind of threading the needle, but I think they have a shot of not losing 100 games, but I don't think they get to 65.
I think you're just setting up a win-win situation. If they lose, I told you so. If they win, look at my Royals. We thought they'd be terrible. They won 65 games.
Yeah, I'll be leading the parade for the 65-win Royals. No question about that, buddy. Mm-hmm. And then in last place, we certainly agreed as the Tigers were dreadful, are dreadful, aren't going to get any better, and are most likely
worse than the Orioles?
Worse than the Orioles. No.
Are they? I don't. It's tough. I'd probably say yes.
Yes. I didn't even think it's that close. I think.
You think it would be worth a bet for some people? I know some books offer some specialty prop stuff. If you could find a bet on the Tigers having the least wins in the MLB, of course they're going to be the favorites. Do you think it's worth to lay that type of number with the Tigers?
I'd lay up to minus 130 at the Tigers having the worst record in baseball.
I think that the odds of them being terrible are pretty much at least 95%. They're going to be awful.
You and I agree there is no way on God's green earth that they reach 55.5. They start off with bad talent and are most likely to trade a lot of it at the deadline if they get the right offer.
Is that your favorite play, the under for the Tigers in this division compared to the Twins?
Well, if the Twins are still at 90.5, I like that just as well.
You like that more than the Tigers?
No, I probably like the Tigers even a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm probably in the same boat as you.
Yeah, under 55.5. All right, very good. Well, there it is. There it is, kids. It's the American League Central. Tomorrow we'll be back with Winners and Wonders' very own David Hess to talk a little American League West. We'll talk about the Astros. We'll talk about the Athletics. Well, you know the teams. You know how this works. So we'll do that tomorrow. As always.
Question. Should I bring the trash can or should you bring the trash can?
Oh, man. That would be so. Just open the show.
It wouldn't be a show if we didn't make one trash can joke, especially with leading into it. So we'll figure it out.
I think people are counting us for a mini trash can joke. So we'll talk.
Give the people what they want.
Give the people what they want. We'll talk about the Stros tomorrow. That should be fun. As always, Scott, thanks for co-hosting with me. We'll always have a blast here talking a little sports with a little winsomeness in our voice as we hope sports will return here sooner rather than later. Stay safe up there, all right, man?
Yep, we'll do. You too.
All right, do good in your do well in your poker tournaments, and of course the Major League Eating competition starts tonight. If you have an account at Bet Online, of course we have no affiliation with Bet Online, but if that's something that you're interested in, certainly take a look at that. And we'll be back tomorrow. Talk a little more baseball before we head into the draft. I'm Scott Steehn. He's Scott Reichel. We are both part of the crew over there at winnersandwiners.com. Check it out. A lot of great content each and every day. Still over at Winners and Winers, your number one spot for sports information on the internet. All right, you guys take care. Have a great day. Stay well, stay safe, stay home. We'll get through this together, and we will talk to you soon. Take care.